everyone, and welcome back to our podcast, ParcFerme. This is our actual first full episode, unlike the previous episode where we were more just introducing ourselves and going through some facts. And joining me,
Captain Bradford, call me Ken, and today we're going to be talking about I see something on your screen. What's that?
yeah, this is not a Subaru 22B, but we will be talking about probably one of the most controversial Subarus of all time, just like Ken's shirt. So
As a road car.
not as a rally car, although we will be touching on rally cars as well. So look forward for that.
So here we go. I have these two models of the WRC. One is the Group A, the GC8 555 Impreza, which is a four-door. It was up to 1996. And from 1997 is the first WR car, the World Rally car, based on the two-door and turned into this beautiful over-fender two-door WRC car, which actually was the first inspiration for Subaru to make the 22B because they won three times, 1995, 1996, 1997, with the help of Colin McRae, which boosted not only Colin's popularity, but Subaru as a brand as a whole, from a farmer's brand into a legit high-performance brand that could equal maybe even like Subaru. Okay, Darren, cut this. So that launched Colin McRae's career into superstardom as the man to watch. He would do his beautiful drifts, and in that blue Subaru with the 555 livery, exciting and creating a new generation of Subaru's fans who wanted to see this actual rally car in road form, and winning 3 years in a row the manufacturer's championship. And so Subaru decided then to make this into a road car. So in actual fact, it was a celebration car and not a homologation car. That's the first thing I would like to clear up. Now, Sam, we talked about this a little bit about the homologation misunderstanding.
So I think so homologation is when a car needs to be made to meet certain criteria for a race, and it's different per race. So, for example, for the Group A cars, it was, I think, 2,500 cars. But for rally, nowadays it could be up past like 20,500 cars. And it depends really on what the rule set is for that motorsport. So yeah, that's pretty much what homologation is in the easiest sense, and it's set by rules determined by usually the FIA or whatever race set is for that car. So it could be you can only have an engine of this size. You can only have a turbocharger if you have an engine of this size, and so on. So cars need to be made in order to fit those criteria so they can make a race car.
And exactly this is the same reason why the 22B at the first look cannot be a homologation car because of its name. 22 means 2.2 liters, and the WRC regulation at the time was 2 liters, not 2.2 liters. The B means officially Bilstein and BBS, which was a special equipment fitted to the 22B as standard. So
I got a question about that. One of our listeners asked, does the B stand for Bilstein, as well as why the BBS RG334s were chosen?
So yes, they do stand for Bilstein and also BBS. This is in an official document you'll see over here. And the model, that actually is a model specific only to the 22B OEM for Subaru. That's similar design for the NSX or the RX-7 is actually called, I think, the RG M or something like that. It's a completely different model. Incidentally, the four-door, all the four-door Type RA they're okay for homologation to be raced in rally or circuit, but not the two-door. Did you know that? And the two-door, the two-door, the 22B is not eligible for homologation in Japan because in the shaken sheet, the registration sheet, it says GC8 Kai, is a Japanese character for Kai, which means modified. So that is not eligible for even racing in any JAF or FIA competition. So there you go. It's completely not a homologation car. Now, how many did they build? Officially was 400, but they made an additional about 24 official customer cars for the UK markets in New Zealand and Australia. And I think they also sent one or two to some other countries, including America, Subaru USA, if I'm not wrong, for display. And there were a couple of prototypes that were given to David Lapworth, to Colin McRae, and David Richards. And one of them you can see exactly is here, what I just shown. This is the car that was brought to the UK, and Colin McRae test drove it in 1998. So the prices of these cars, which we'll discuss later, is just crazy. But there's a little bit of a misconception about the cars selling out in 24 hours. It was not as ridiculous as that. I think the media at that time would like to, exaggerate a lot of these things. The car was really expensive. It was 2 million yen more than a regular WRX STI Type R or Type RA at 5 million yen. That's the price of the Skyline GTR. And really only the hardcore Subaru fans who were waiting for it. And it was really a big thing, like even for, any kind of rally fan of that time, waiting for a car that looked exactly like the WRC car. But as we'll discuss a little later on, it is not actually exactly to the.
It's also interesting. A lot of these homologated specials as well aren't sold to the public. A lot of them are, sold to members of the team that made the car. I know for sure, for my own example, the GRMN Yaris, there's 500 of them, and at least 30 of those are within Toyota still. People that are working for Toyota.
Doesn't it make a lot of sense because they want to keep those cars in house just to like.
I think so as well. And like again with any car, having a car like that's special, having it still for development purchases, testing, to know that what we made is still okay, or how can we improve on this again, especially for like super limited cars like that. As soon as they're sold off, it's usually pretty hard to get them back off the customer for a reasonable price.
That makes a lot of sense. So another question that people always ask, or there's some rumors flying about, is the actual power value of the 22B.
Yeah, so I think it's widely said by a lot of people that it has over 300 horsepower, but I've also noticed in a few tests, I think in the UK, that it was actually well under 300 horsepower. And there's also quite a few people with the facts that it was the fastest of the GC8s, which it just isn't true either, because there's the S201, which is technically the fastest GC8 you can buy. And usually with all S cars, actually, they are the fastest examples of cars you can buy. Oh, there you go.
Impreza magazine #1. Okay, just before you go on, I want to show you this. Impreza magazine #1 shows the 22B, and they talk about the power levels, and they actually not one or two. They tested it on a dyno, and lo and behold, the value at the roll-on road was actually 260 horsepower after corrected for value. Now the car was new at the time, so you could say the engine wasn't completely running yet, but even with corrections, right? So it was a rolling road, so which actually brings it closer to 280.
Yeah, so pretty much right on the dot for the gentleman agreement of 275, 280 PS. I think like the one that I was saying is the UK guys, not the UK guys, it was a bring a trailer auction, and they put the car on a dyno, and it was 240 at the wheels. Which, I mean, again, like Ken said, it's a new car. For this one, it's an old car, and cars kind of leak horsepower as they get older. So that could be why it is that far down, instead of like the rumors that spread around of it being like 350, 380 horsepower. Yeah, it's just not there.
Correct. It's just not there. However, the drivability of the EJ22 2.2, giving it extra low-end torque, which the Subaru EJ20 short-stroke engines are notoriously, known for not having any torque, just kind of like an RB26. Fanboys, if you've never driven a WX 2-liter, don't be disappointed if you ever drive one, because it doesn't have as much torque as a 3SG or a 4G63 or even an SR20. It's just the way it is. However, the great attractive thing about Subaru engines, the STI engines, is that once it boost comes in 4,000 RPM, this is a 2-liter, the power rush until 8,000 it's very fast in a straight line. It's actually faster in a straight line than Lancer Evolution. But Lancer Evolution is more like linear, flat torque curve kind of power, right? But the 22B solves that problem by,
it's like 3,200.
what was it?
Yeah, 363 Newton meters, 3,200.
Something like that, right? When I drove it back many, many years ago, I could feel, oh, this is getting closer to 4G63 kind of levels of like the torque. What I didn't really understand about this engine is that the way also the power comes at the top end makes it very, it gives it a great push. And I found out the secret later on, which I didn't realize in the original documents. So it's based on the STI version 4. So the difference between the STI version 3 and the 4, besides the engine little internals, is actually the turbocharger. The STI version 3 had a bigger compressor, and they downsized it for the STI version 4 to give it more linear. So they used the STI version 3's turbo on the 22B, so it's more punchy. Since it had more low-end torque, it gave it a good balance. This is why I think testers in the UK or whatever at the time also thought that it was like a really great experience. However, I also will note that they didn't get at the time the STI version 4, so they could not compare the actual performance difference between the 22B and a lighter STI version 4, which brings us to our next point about certain myths. I think, Sam, you want to shed some light about some of the other myths?
So the street legal rally car and the naming mystery behind that. So
yeah.
I think when you see a 22B in person, it does look very close to the actual WR car. But if you have them next to each other, I've seen them next to each other at, I think it was Rally Japan 4 years ago. They had both of them, and you can tell that there is a difference in the size of the car, as well as how it's sitting on the road. Obviously, one's a race car, one's a road car. So the math, yeah.
Here it is. And Jam, you're talking about this. The fenders.
Completely different.
It's pretty obvious. Completely different. The size of the fenders in the rally car is huge. It's taller in order to accommodate this huge diameter 18-inch wheel and tire set. And this is why the car has this.
You have the travel too. Like rally, the off-road, like the gravel suspension travel is so much larger than the tarmac. Like if you tried to put rally suspension on a regular car, it would look honestly like a monster truck. So you need the space to fit that in. Yeah.
Like that.
So I think so. The myth is obviously the 22B is a homologation special. We've covered that. It's not a homologation special, and Subaru never intended to build it as a homologation car. They built it purely to celebrate what they had achieved in the WRC, which I don't think a lot of people maybe remember, especially people that are younger than both of us. I'm younger than Ken, but younger than me, who lived in the time where these rally cars were still driving. The Subaru was actually quite a bit more domineering than the Mitsubishi was. So the fans behind that car, I mean, I've discussed it in a video myself, the Subarist movement is very much about getting their hands on as much information, as much special parts as they can. So Subaru, obviously, they know, well, you've seen just how many special and limited editions of cars they release. They knew if they did this. Did we talk about how much more it cost than the regular car? Yeah, 2 mil, so 20 grand more, pretty much, give or take, than the regular STI car. So even at that price, they had it, people buying it out pretty much like within, I think it was like technically a few months after it got released, like we said before. We covered the 22B meaning. It's not the 555 hexadecimal cigarette sponsor thing. It is to do with, obviously, the BBS wheels and the Bilstein shocks. And then we also talked about the 2.2 liter engine not even being able to be homologated in the first place. It's a 2 liter engine with a turbo. And then I don't know if we touched on it, what actually the WR car was based off. So it's not even based off the car that you see here, even the Type R. It's based off. I have a picture. It's absolutely tiny, so we'll get Darren to put it on the screen. But you can see it right here. The two-door, 1.8 liter Retina.
What is it called?
That's the one.
Or Ritona in Japanese. And this is actually a girl's car.
This is the unfortunate truth about your favorite JDM cars. A lot of them were made for women. Silvia, Integra, even the Celica was a woman's car. So there you go. No,
We don't mean it in a bad way, but in the 80s and the 90s, the concept, and this is actually coming from the 70s, and me and Sam were just talking about it the other day, that in the 70s, you had a four-door version of a normal sedan car, and this was the normal car that most people bought. Today, it's crossovers, which is based on a hatchback crossover with an SUV. But back in the day, you had a sedan or station wagon for the family man and the extended family with a lot of kids and goods. But for someone who is single, as a personal car, what was called a two-door sedan. So it was literally a four-door car with only two doors. And so even Crowns had
Glorious
it,
too.
American cars had it. When cars like the Celica came out, it was kind of like the pony car, same with the Mustang, but a more compact version. And this started a trend of the what you call the specialty car, which is I think is a very special thing in Japan with its categorization. Come the bubble era, where cars were more of a stylish kind of lifestyle statement, and women liked that individuality of having a normal kind of sedan car, but having a two-door. They had nice colors, interior, and so amongst those, you had cars like the original S13. It's not the original, but I mean that was extremely popular. S13 Sylvia, and then the Prelude, which
for a certain handbrake, if you know handbrake position and the seat.
yeah. The pervert, the pervert lever, the pervert lever thing. Yeah, FTO at the higher level, the Sora, and so Subaru at that time they made something called the SVX, which was a very high end vehicle. So they decided to make a two-door version of the GC8 so they could make it low cost. And that time also Mitsubishi had a Mirage Asti, which is basically a Lancer Mirage body two-door, right? So all in that same category. Nissan had also the Sunny two.
What's that weird one they had? It had like it was like based on the Pulsar, but you could like take the back off and put it on.
The Exa. Okay, then hang on. But this is in Japan. Two-door coupe cars were seen as sporty in countries like America, so that's why they gave Americans a WRX looking front, and they put a 2.5 liter NA engine. It was never a WRX, right? Now, there's some argument also about the body rigidity of a two-door versus a four-door. Now, Sam and I are rally guys. We know for sure that a four-door body with the B pillar right in the
you get a big old thing in the middle,
rigid than a two-door. This is not something that is rocket science. However, you can make a two-door very, very stiff as much as possible by reinforcing the mounting, the welding and the plate and everything. And somebody also said in the comments that the outer skin is welded to the inner skin, which is actually not true. However, the big opening still remains, which means the floor rigidity still has more space to flex. Right now, in the WRC car, all that is negated because If you put a roll cage, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They can ProDrive selected the 4-door, the 3-door, simply because it was easier to make a slim body 4-door into a wider fender by modifying this part. You see, Mitsubishi had to put over fenders, stick-on over fenders on a Lancer Evolution to make it into a wide body from the 4 to the 5. But Peter Stevens decided, okay, let's design this to make it a really beautiful car. And by using a 2-door, they could make it aerodynamically impressive, but also have the fender advantage, which, as you can see here. So this is the basis of the 22B. This is how it is arguably the most beautiful car of the 90s that everybody envied. And it was beautiful running on the stage. And this is why we all love it. I love it too. However, the body rigidity bits were not a concern in a race car. Now, having said that, the 2-door WRX STI drivability is not bad. I think Subaru did quite a good job. There wasn't such a huge noticeable difference in the drop in body rigidity between the 4-door WRX STI Type R and the 2-door Type R. It was not so bad. The ones that are really bad, in my own honest opinion, is Skyline GTR, especially the R32. It's so bad when you've owned a 32 just until recently. When you jack the car up, you cannot. You open the door, you won't be able to close it once you jack only one side up. It's really that bad. The car is just heavy on the GTR, So
massive bad.
The whole back part about that.
I think as well, the shorter the car, for rally at least, the better.
Of course, with the wheelbase. The shorter the car in terms of the floor area, the more you can get away with less overall rigidity as well. Which brings us to our next point. The equipment in the 22B is something also very interesting. The equipment that appeared at that time was very luxurious. So it had the Bilstein dampers, which was the first time they were using it on the WRX STI series. So it was a big deal. That's why it was included in the expression of the B. The BBS wheels, which were already available as an option on the version 3, if I remember, and also as an option on some of the older legacies, but to have it standard equipment, 17-inch, yeah, they had it at, right? Yeah, it was quite a special thing. Otherwise, other than that, and also that was the first time they used the inverted struts, which became a normal equipment from the version 5 onwards. Other than that, and the 2.2-liter engine and the turbo, everything else was just regular equipment from the normal WRX STI Type R version 4, which is actually based on the Type RA. Shorter gear ratio. It's so bad that you cannot drive it on highway. Engine RPM is like 4,000 RPM. It's just ridiculous. It's like, yeah. The DCCD was completely mechanical in those days. You had a little dial to switch the torque distribution in the middle of all of that. The mechanical differential slip, and then the blue interior, which also became standard on the GDB later on, the special seats, which is exactly the same seats. It's just blue and black. That's it. There's 90 steering wheel. Yeah. So actually, to be honest, really nothing really special about that bits itself. No more special than what is on Lancer Evolution. The car is a cheap car base, one rank below even the Skyline or the Celica, and was very Spartan, but they added some fashion flares in it, which excited the Subaru fanboy.
The ever-growing fanboys. And girls. And girls, I guess we can't discriminate. Helicopters.
Oh, yeah. But the iconicism is what's more important of this car that built the reputation of the future Subarus, right, Sam?
I don't know. It's hard for me growing up. I grew up in Pukekohe, which is like where Possum Born is, which is Mr. Subaru for not just New Zealand. He was Mr. Subaru for Japan as well at the time. So he also got his own 22B. I've seen it in person. So I think a lot of those, like those 24, the 24 cars that got sent overseas were a lot of them for drivers and co-drivers and people involved in the team rather than for sale to public, I think, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so growing up with Subaru like right there, it was a massive deal having a face and a car that you could connect together, and you could also drive, if that makes sense. Like it was the classic sale, win on Sunday, like buy on Monday, kind of sell on Monday kind of thing. It was very much true for not just the 22B, but for the WRX as a whole at that point.
So the mythology of the existence of the car comes from two different sources. Obviously, the WRC like glory itself, but then we have a representation in a road car that is a limited model. I think this is what builds up its value. But do you know something? Do you know something, Sam? Um, so for example, guys like Akira Teshima, who is actually one of the key designers in the original GC8 in the days, he has a 22B, and he said he bought it at a time in the second-hand market when the car was relatively cheap, and I think it must have been like 4 or 5 million yen, which is close to the original price. And so that guys like GC8 Kai, and today I went to see a or a 22B last year, and
I remember that car.
You remember that?
It was like something insane. It was like 180 grand or something weird like that. Like I think like 18 million yen.
That was way, way, way over the top. More than even what the low mileage ex Colin McRae Pro Drive own 22B sold for in America and bring a trailer, right? That's a special car. That was ex real Colin McRae car. It's worth in intrinsic value that kind of money. But any other normal owner 22B,
honestly, I mean, for someone that likes Subaru, maybe yes, but I honestly think car prices these days have just gone way past what they should. No one should be spending $250,000 to $1 million on a GTR. They're just not that level of car, to be honest. And the 22B is the same, especially because it isn't the homologated car you want. If you want to spend big money, you might as well buy an RA. That would make more sense to me.
Dude. At that kind of price, you might as well go and hunt down an X Pro Drive, real WRC.
Exactly, it makes a lot more sense. And and for a lot of you overseas, you can drive that on the road still. We can't, but you might be able to. We used to in Japan, I think. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm putting down Subaru fans, but at the end of the day, I think even Subaru fans honestly will realize that the 22B is still basically an Impreza. An Impreza was never meant to be a really high rank super value car. That's why people love Impreza WRX, Lancer Evolution, Delta Integrale, Ford Escort, Civic Type R, because they were cheap pocket rockets, great value for money, fast out of the box, and could kill and match supercars at the time. Even the Skyline GTR, actually, even at a higher price point. And as Sam said today, everything, including the world of air-cooled Porsches, is just going up in user value, which, I mean, it's okay in a sense where these cars are definitely neoclassic, and as they get older, over 20, 25 years old, they will rise in price. However, we'll talk about this in another episode. There's a huge difference between, for example, Honda VTEC models, Civic SIR Type R, compared to the equivalent Toyota 4AG 5-valve models, like as much as 2.3 million yen for something in the same class. And why? There's popularity, there's hype, there is all this kind of things. And Sam and I were talking about this the other day, about just how many of these cars have got a really big difference in balloon value. Bro, what were you saying about that?
The Civic, just the regular EG Civic nowadays is like 50 grand sometimes in Japan, which is, I just cannot fathom how, like when I grew up, the meme was your first car is a 1999 Honda Civic. I don't care if it's 2030. That was the meme. And now you can't have that as your first car because they're 50, 30, 40. I've seen an EK9 Civic get close to 100k now. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, if you want to buy it, you want to spend the money on it, it's your money. In the end of the day, do what you want with it, as I found out by selling a Type M 32 and buying a 155 Q4. But in the end of the day, if you want to pay that much money, by all means, pay that much money. But there's so many other cars that are just as good, if not better, that you can buy for less. A good example is the B7 RS4. Only came in a manual, 4.2 liter V8 out of the R8, revs to like 8,300 RPM. You have 420 horsepower, and it's four-wheel drive, so you can drive it anytime you want. I mean, it is an Audi, it's probably going to break, but let's be honest, which one would you rather drive?
So what Sam is saying is, if you are out looking for good value for money, you prioritize driving experience, performance, you're in that, like the next stage, the faster car, you want to maybe do a bit of spirited driving, you want to have the experience of having a higher power car. The priority is the performance rather than you being a true, real, deep, hardcore, almost to fanboy level of a particular car, which is nothing wrong with it. And there are people who love a particular model so much they don't care how much, even if it's gotten quite high, they will go for it. That's also really, really, really fine. I mean, I would do that for a few specific models. I think Sam would too. But if you're not that person, you got to ask yourself a really honest question. Just because there is a lot of attention, it's the trend, or there's a lot of hype on a particular model, and you think you want to get into it just to get in that club, which is another problem with the car community today. I find personally, I'm sorry, with younger peoples in their 20s, they get heavily influenced by like anything from Fast and Furious to Initial D, MF Ghost these days, to games, and then they want to buy into that lifestyle because in Japan, it's all about groupism. The idea of, you are doing one common thing, and the way they do this is they buy a popular car, and this is the basis of the Subarist. And at the top of the Subarist, you have a 22B. This is what we're talking about. This is also one of the contributing factors, I feel, that why the 22B is so revered. And I think the Subarist kind of culture exists around the world. It's quite crazy. I see it everywhere. And my friend Quentin and I made a video about the 22B. You guys can also go.
Yeah, we'll link it below.
Sam, what's your view on this? What's the?
Okay, so I did an interesting video on this because, like Ken, we both post the occasional Subaru thing on our pages, and there will inevitably be comments from fans saying, "Oh, you're wrong on this. Well, actually, this is this and this," and it's getting to the point now where they aggressively attack you if you make a mistake and then try and correct them. So I guess for me, it's at the point now where I probably shouldn't actually comment at all on anything. Like I posted, I think, a few months ago about the legacy estate being the Subaru you should actually be looking at instead of like a 22B or even an RA is out of the reach of a lot of people nowadays, because the legacy has twin turbo. It has the same engine but with a twin turbo. It's a bigger car, so you can fit more things on it. It's a lot cheaper, and really for what you're getting a 280 horsepower manual estate, and estates are the coolest cars, let's be real here. They've got the sportiness of the sedan, they look good, and they have the practicality of an SUV. You don't need an SUV, especially if you only have 2 kids. It doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah.
This. The ultimate, the top of station wagon, the Nissan Stagea 260 RS with the RB26 engine, built on the R33 GTR 4-wheel drive system. I sound like a salesman. Anyway, but yeah, you're absolutely right. The Legacy 3rd generation also was the first Subaru to introduce the double wishbone suspension. So actually already Legacy technology equipment was always one step ahead of the Impreza, which of course it's their flagship car. And so it's worth a look as an alternative. And I had a BH5 Legacy Touring Wagon GTB E-Tune 2 twin turbo manual. It was fantastic. I think that's still my favorite Subaru of all.
But mine was different. Mine was a Lancaster 6, so it had the H6 flat 6.
Oh,
yeah, it's a Porsche and a Subaru. It's a cheap man's Porsche, and you get extra seats, and Ours was actually interesting. We
Transport.
converted it to a 7-seater, so you had the Mercedes rear-facing seat in ours. Yeah, interesting time.
In addition to the 2.2 liter engine, which actually came from one of the export spec legacy, this is also a closed deck, which is the same specification as what was used in the WRC cars. Now, obviously, a closed deck has more rigidity for the engine block versus the open deck, which they used on the regular WRX SCI GC8 at the time, in order to improve not actually the cooling, of course, the cooling with more flow of the coolant, but actually to make the cylinder head warmer so that the mixture will be warmer and to better improve the emissions for the car to meet the 1998 emission specification. That was the actual reason. In the GDB, then they reverted to using a semi-closed deck and improved it until the GRB. But really, if you want to build big power, the fully closed deck is.
I was going to say, because the Tommy Kaira cars are all 2.2 as well. So the same reason.
That's right. Because there was the only factory closed decks. The same reason there was the only factory closed decks that was available at its time. So you sacrifice a bit of cooling. You don't need that heating for strength, because the 22B has the same block as an EJ20. The EJ22 is all the same structure. Anyway, the boxer engine of the Subaru cars is based on an economy block. So it's a very short stroke. There's a lot of things that they cannot do. They cannot make the engine wider because otherwise it won't fit into the engine bay. So the architecture of the thing is completely different to what Porsche, but even Porsche are restricted by the width of the car. These cars, boxer engines, cannot have a long conrod like an upright inline engine, right? So, which means the piston bore is extremely large.
I guess it'd be similar to the GR Yaris's 3-cylinder. It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge for its size, but we're talking, but that still is very small in comparison to a Subaru or a Porsche piston, right? So strength for the engine is very important. So that was the great specification point for the fanboys who, it's just, okay, they use forged pistons on that, sodium filled valves, and also, have like the higher specification turbocharger. But in addition to that, the four-wheel drive system, the symmetrical four-wheel drive system, is exactly the same as the other GC8 WRXs. Still had the 5-speed manual transmission with a shorter close ratio from the Type R, which also came from the Type RA. It gave it very good sprinting ability, 0 to 100 times, but actually it was heavier by at least 20 kilograms or so or more than the narrow body Type R version 4 with 16-inch wheels. And so in best motoring, the performance, even on the circuit, it had mild understeer. And the reason is this, right? Although it has a wider body mimicking the WRC car, 1770 mm body width, the tread or the track width wasn't fully maximized to the same as the WRC car. In order to extend the track width, they changed the hubs, but the actual arms, the length was still the same. Now, Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 5 CP9A also became full 1770 mm, but the arms are all longer. The drive shaft, everything is longer in order to suit
proper wide body. Yeah,
that's the proper way to make a proper wide track car. Yes, the rear as well. But on the 22B, it's the combination of the hubs and the wider wheels that makes it come on. So it means that there's very strange geometry. There's more scrub radius, and even the best motoring guys like Hattori, when he tried the car, was like, it feels a bit strange. It's more stable,
my 155 is the same, wide body, but they've just changed the hub size. And I was changing the calipers a few days ago, and I had always thought there was a spacer on it, but it wasn't. The hubs were just that much bigger, just to fit wheels, so they could fit in those wider blistered fenders. So it'd be exactly the same, I think.
Exactly the same, which has advantage in terms of being able to put bigger tires and you play with the offset. But in terms of the geometry angle, if it's not properly, you have longer arms, it will, So just that point alone was a handling problem with the 22B. And I think if testers in the UK could have really compared it side by side with a JDM Type R version 4, they would have understand that the 22B's handling was not the holy grail as what they thought it was. And so the conclusion to this is that it was really just a car made with some special equipment to satisfy the Subaru fans, but it was also a brilliant marketing move by Subaru, because then they had a halo car just like GTR in that status. And to be honest, so this came out in 1998. The rival was the Lancer Evolution 5, and the Tommy Mäkinen Special Red came out in 2000.
Yeah.
Mitsubishi basically looked at the 22B, and I was there when they were doing the planning, and they was like, "Oh, damn, we want some of that glory, so we want to make a car that would be the poster pinups, halo car representative of our brand." And this is exactly what happened. And after that, you always see comparisons between a year 2000 Tommy Mäkinen red stripe Lance Evolution and a 22B, although they're actually from slightly 2 years off, right? They sit in the same collector's value as a R34 GTR Spec or whatever. But strangely speaking, the NSXR is also up there, but Spirit R is also up there. So it's very clever of these Japanese brands to create one special spec for the collectors and to have a very high value. This was the genius of the 22B. They created this early on, and you cannot replicate this easily from the factory because it had the body taken out of the line, had the narrow body fenders removed, special press fenders. It was fitted hand by STI. They re-welded it, sprayed it again, and fitted all the special stuff in it. It was called a complete car. And of course, they made more complete cars after that, which we come to the last GC8 model called the S201, which actually is more advanced in performance than the 22B. And
yeah, I really like that car, mostly because it looks like a six-spec car, but it's an actual factory car. And yeah, I've had a fight with someone over this because they will argue to their grave that the 22B is a faster car, but technically the GC8, the S201 on release is marketed as a 300 horsepower car rather than everyone else that's like, oh, gentleman agreement, 275, 280 PS. Subaru at that point was just like, you know what, fuck it, we'll do it. We'll make it 300 horsepower. Stuff you guys, and then we'll chuck a giant bumper and a massive wing on the back, and it'll look awesome. And it's kind of aged for a lot of people like milk out in the sun, but for me, I feel like it is very of the age car, and it is probably one of the coolest JDM cars you could buy, and they aren't actually worth as much as you'd think they are. As well, like most of these S cars are very cheap for what they are.
It's very sad because as Subaru, or STI rather, improved more and more of their complete car series, they got better and better. But even for them and Subaru, the 22B remains a very important representation of their participation and win in WRC. The image of that actually, even in their books, holds a special place as the foundation of everything that comes after that. But so this is where the catch is. Everything after that exceeds the 22B by quite a huge mile. So in terms of the holy grailness of performance, I'm sorry, it's not the 22B.
It's a slow car nowadays. Or and it's not slow. It is a capable, fast car. It's just not as good as people think it is. Same with like the A80 Supra, the R34. In a stock form, they aren't as insane as I think a lot of people think they are.
Can I just say this also, because I'm from Mitsubishi, and then people also overpraise the Tommy Mäkinen edition. The Tommy Mäkinen edition, which we'll have to talk about in another video, is not so much different in specification from a regular 6 GSR, which I have, or even the 5 GSR. It is not the holy grail performance of the Lancer Evolution series. That would have to go through either the 8 MR or the 9 MR. In the same way that the GDB Type RA Spec C, S203, S204 is, and the Type RAR is the pinnacle of Subaru Impreza WRX STI experience. It was there. The 10 and the GBB, GRB, that's a different generation. That's more towards like European style comfort, road holding. But the rawness ends there. Why? Because these cars kept on evolving, kept on improving. The problems kept on getting better. It reached that peak, and that is the holy grail of performance. But the 22B Tommy Mackinnon Special Coloring Edition would be the.
Would you call it the poster child? I think you're the poster child is a better name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's agree on that. Is the poster child iconic car. In the same way, the Ferrari F40 carries that banner, even though the future cars were, objectively better than the F40, right? So the same thing. It's romanticism, and romanticism is fine as long as I feel it's categorized properly and not blown out of proportion, which is...
Yeah. It'd be the same video if we made the 787B video. Exactly the same thing. Yeah, we'll have to go over that. But like it's like Ken said, as soon as they come from a feeling of nostalgia, where it's like when, like, for example, if you caught a fish, and by the time you got home, it started off this size, and as you're getting home, it's just getting bigger and bigger, but the actual fish is still this size. That is what the 22B has become. It has become this big when it is really only this big of a car.
I love that analogy.
I feel like that's it.
Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. Let us know in the comments. Yeah, let us know in the comments what car you would like us to talk about next.
Sneak peek for the next episode, decided on the topic. It's another controversial topic. It is the four-wheel drive system of the GTR versus the Porsche 959. And who copied who, if it was ever a copy.
That is another myth we like to clear up. We need to talk about that.
Yeah, so if you have any questions in below, or you could, I guess, eventually we'll do a story on Instagram of either of us. Put your questions in there, and yeah, we'll try answer them next time. Thanks for listening. See you.
Peace out.